Hello, my name is Jupiter Hadley, and today we're doing another version of Jupi Plays All the Games, this time with Spring Clean Twine Jam. This is a game jam that challenged developers to take an old project they'd been working on in Twine and bring it up to some sort of end or start something new and share it with them. So you could create a demo or something to show it off, and the idea was just to sort of finish a project or come to an end point using Twine. I'm playing all of the games that are entered in this jam for a minute each. Links to individual games will be in the description, 10 per video, so you can check them out further. All my info will also be in the description, so you can check me out as well. Thank you so much for watching and liking and commenting and subscribing, and if you want to support what I do, consider supporting me on Patreon. Next. We're playing Beginning Hour, a work-in-progress demo. This is a Twine story based on Resident Evil 7 Beginning Hour teaser demo. There are multiple endings which are designed to be discovered through repeated playthroughs. Please note this is work-in-progress, not all paths are complete. The story contains strong language, as well as a description of bloody violence and dead bodies of people and animals. Cool, I've never seen Resident Evil, whatever. You wake up on a hardwood floor. Your head is pounding as your eyes begin to focus. A cockroach scuffles across the floorboards into the darkness. Get up. Your body aches as you push yourself onto your feet. You're in a dimly lit room, and a musty smell hangs in the air. Your eyes begin to adjust themselves to the darkness. Get out of the house. Examine your surroundings. You're standing in a small living room. The faded wallpaper is warmed and ripped off in places, exposing the bare wall. The floor is covered in little piles of cigarette ash. In the middle of the room is a small coffee table surrounded by brown leather chairs. Next to the chairs is a brick fireplace. In the corner of the room there's a dusty upright piano. In the other corner is an old TV showing static. And you can see on one wall there's a fuse box with a few glowing lights. Look at fuse box. The metal fuse box door is open, showing 4 relays with small glowing lights above each one. 3 of the relays have fuse, which are labeled 1F, 2F, 3F. Lights above them are green. The relay, which is missing a fuse, is labeled stairs. The light is red. Let's look at table. Coffee table is sitting on top of a threadbare rug and is surrounded by leather chairs. There are some coffee cups scattered across its watermarked surface, which look as though they haven't been touched in years. There's a scrap of paper in one of the cups. Let's look at the paper. The paper is torn and crumpled. There's something written on it. I shall dash them against the stones. I don't know what that means. Go to the fireplace. A dark stained wooden mantelpiece surrounds the fireplace with 2 tarnished candlesticks proudly standing on either side. The fireplace itself is empty and appears to have been swept quite recently. On the chimney breast above the mantelpiece is a framed black and white photograph. A father, a mother, and 2 children sitting on a leather sofa. They're smiling. That's not very helpful. We got piano. Wonder where the other fuse is. I think this is an interesting concept, taking a video game and writing this based on a teaser of a video game. I don't know if it's well done, because I haven't seen the teaser, but I think it's interesting. Next. We're playing the 12th Dancing Princess and that other guy. Once upon a time, there lived in the village of Chicago, Mobile, Austin, Nashville, Chicago. Let's do Mobile. A very average-looking boy whose real name is unimportant to our story, but it was probably Chad or Brad or Mike or something. But the townspeople referred to him as Stargazer because when he walked around the city streets, he was often seen looking towards the sky. I suppose this is the point where I describe his appearance. Stargazer was exactly the type to get away with minuscule behavior. He had white skin, blue eyes, hair that curled all over his head, but he was a nice guy, so no need to worry about him, right? Guess we'll find out. I like this writing. This writing's good. Onward. If you hadn't already guessed by now, Stargazer holds quite a lot of privilege. It shows in particular when he observes those around him. Stargazer walks around a city. He notices that people around him are pretty ugly. They have sun damage, wrinkly skin, dirty, mud-ridden hands, and wear worn-out boots as they climb into public transport. Sounds like workers. He's heard that somewhere in the world there are girls whose skin is perfectly tanned and whose hands are always manicured, as they've clearly never worked a day in their lives. They were princesses, obviously. As he gazed up at the stars, he dreamed that his very average appearance, coupled with his many privileges, would allow him the happiness to marry a princess. After all, hasn't he earned it? One day, Stargazer opened his astrology app. It read, "Today's moon's transit is asking you to be brave yet patient in the chance of conflict." Oh, we can switch this. You're feeling especially intense and passionate today. Use that nerve, try something new. This is fun. This was it. This was the sign to go after his destiny. Stargazer packed up his things and headed out to find his princess. It was well known for many miles around that there lived in the castle of New York City 12 princesses of wonderful beauty, as proud as they were beautiful, who were besides so very sensitive and of such royal blood. They slept in the finest of sheets and could spot a fake Louis bag from a mile away. The local gossip had different opinions over the lives of princesses. Some said that girls ought to sleep far into the morning and never get up till midday, while others thought they should rise at an appropriate time to volunteer in the community. You feel like it might be nice if princesses use their time and money to help other people. Sort of a modern Robin Hood situation, but that's not this fairy tale. Aw, I think this is really clever in the way that it was written. Next. We're playing Winter in June. This is a trigger warning. Please be advised the game centers on themes of adult language, sexual harassment, suicide, ideation, depression, and anxiety. Continue with care. This game is very important to me. I appreciate you taking the time to play it. Do you have a plan? No. Do you have any means? A bottle of pills in my drawer. Instant regret. The words are seared into your brain, the moment playing over and over and over in your mind. It's been 6 hours. 6 hours since you sat in your room getting interrogated. 5 hours since a police officer lied to you. 4 hours since they took your only source of contact. 1 hour since the strange boy down the hall started watching you. He hasn't stopped. I want to go home. I don't want to be here anymore. It's midnight. In 5 hours, your parents will be waking up for breakfast, waking up to see you. They don't know yet. You're sitting alone in this room with the phone, trying with everything in you just to pick it up and call them, tell them, but you don't want to disappoint them. As soon as you pick up the fucking phone, it becomes real. Everything becomes a reality, and you're just stuck in this mess. Don't pick up the phone. At 3 a.m., the strange boy comes into your room. He calls you pretty. There are no words that can describe what you're feeling. You are numb. At 5 a.m., you call your parents. They sound tired. They sound stressed. You begin to feel even worse. At 11 a.m., they take you away. It's an hour-long drive. You spend the entire time watching the sunlight over the highway, wishing you were anywhere else. At 1 p.m., they process you. They take your phone, ask if your bra has a wire. Take your bra. They ask you the same 50 fucking questions the other place asked you. They bring you a ham sandwich and tell you it's time for a strip search. You can't help it. The tears are just there. The nurse laughs and asks, "Why are you crying?" "Hey there, sweetie, are you ready to wake up yet? We'd love to see you at breakfast." You roll over in bed and glance down at the woman standing near the doorway. Her scrubs are colorful, and she's got a clipboard in her hand. She looks at the other bed and writes something down and then leaves. She's right. You should get out of bed. Food sounds awfully good. Then again, the last 2 days have been horrible. It wouldn't hurt to keep sleeping. Let's see. When was the last time you ate? Oh, right, fucking forever ago. You drag yourself out of bed, and just as you're about to slip on your flip-flops, you reach for the provided socks instead. A glance towards your roommate tells you she's still fast asleep. Their attendant waves at you. You don't know how to respond. You shuffle out into the hallway and take a look up and down the hall. It's actually somewhat lively for 9 in the morning. Most of the middle-aged or elderly people are out milling around. Several of them already appear to be lined up by the doors at the end of the hall. A lady stands at the front of everyone, a different lady with another clipboard. One of the other employees nods at her and the double doors click open. All right, everyone single file. Immediately, everyone follows her through the doors and squeezes into the elevator. A few floors down and everyone is following her like a bunch of kindergartners with some invisible rope. The cafeteria is much smaller than you expected, nothing like the dining hall at school. There's a few scattered tables and a small food line. It certainly looks as though they're only serving one kind of food. You continue to follow the others, unsure what's really going on at this point. Needless to say, bagged eggs were not great. So she seems to be at some sort of, mental rehab? I don't know what it's called, really, if it's not for, alcohol. Maybe it's still called rehab. Rehabilitation center? That's interesting. I like how this has started off in the middle of the story and hasn't really explained anything, apart from a very long day. I think it's well written. I think it's thought through. Next. We're playing The Time Machine. The time machine is ready. It's delicate but functional and one of a kind. Technically, so are you, although you're not particularly adept at operating time machines. Do you enter it? Yes. You decide to go boldly, but where has no one gone before? I want to see the future. You arrive in the future inside some sort of museum. Outside, you see a spectacular skyline of metallic and glass structures. There are no people anywhere, and it's eerily quiet. You're conveniently near a display of futuristic weapons. What do you take? Both. I can't carry both. Let's take a laser pistol. Oh, look at the little graphic. The laser pistol is flat and needs to be charged, but its plug is unfamiliar. You curse the power requirements and the lack of backwards compatibility of the whatever century you're in and grab the ray gun instead. Onwards. You identify the ray gun as a Fisher-Price Mark II. Fisher-Price is the child toy brand that my parents really liked. You're not an expert because it's from the future, and you are not, but you know what it is because the name is printed on the side. You assume it's named after Carrie Fisher and Vince Price. The adventure continues. You step onto the next room. You wish you hadn't. The room is filled with shelves, and shelves are filled with jars, and jars are filled with decapitated heads, and the heads are preserved in some sort of liquid. What to do now? Take a moment to center yourself. The robot guard burst into the room, but because you were too busy hesitating to catch you off guard and shoot you. Time to die. You didn't live long or prosper. Worse, your death in the time stream has created a paradox. It's not like tears in rain at all. This is not like tears in rain at all. I think this is cute. It's short. It was definitely interesting. Next. We're playing The Forest We Deserve. There's a content warning. This game contains sequences of mild horror, mentions of underage drug use, mentions of depression, and external links to content that contain severe abuse, murder, and disease. Okay. You stare into the gaping maw of a new frontier. For some reason, you feel as though you could cry at its discovery, but you can't remember ever feeling depressed. Were you ever sad? After a long night of studying, you decide to take a shortcut home from the library. Your roommate spoke briefly about a back road by the old firehouse that led directly to your dormitory's entrance. They described the shortcut as woodsy, but you certainly weren't expecting this. In fact, what made you think this was a good idea in the first place? You're honestly not sure if you're even trying to get home at this point. Your clock reads 13 after 1, or 13 after midnight. It's a Friday night. Your mind and eyes are tired. Your form sags with exhaustion. Your gut is already asleep. However, something parasitic in your brain is wide awake. It's irritating, and it begs for acknowledgement. Are you more interested in losing yourself or finding your way home? Let's enter the forest. In the last-ditch effort to save you, the remaining consciousness of your mind kicks your adrenaline up and reminds you of the potential dangers ahead. There could be animals, you could fall and break a bone, or worse, your neck. You could get lost and stranded and no one would find you. There could be serial killers. Do you really continue in that forest? Let's not think about him. I guess that's an external link we could click. Nah. You take one last look at the entrance to the forest and decide that you'll try the shortcut during the day. As you approach your dorm, you walk down the middle of the road simply because you can. There's something magical about exploring your agency, free from the law, free from shame. You could even rest here if you wanted to, but you don't. You march home in a peaceful reveille, I don't know. After 5 or so minutes of civil disobedience, you arrive at your dorm. You tap the card into the main entrance, you take the elevator up to your floor, and you unlock the door. Ending 1 of 4, dormitory. Oh, welcome back. So I just went back. I had a boring ending. There's a guide now, though. Interesting. Next. We're playing Gen number 9, 1931. Ooh, some music. They wheel you into the lab on a gurney. Your thoughts are muddled. Your hands strapped down. Creepy. Can't move. Can't move. Gen number 9. Start. 1924. You're still mad at Betty. It was her idea to sneak in here. You look down at your torn dress. You're going to get the stitch from Mama when you get home for certain. It's your only dress, and you've ripped a jagged seam along the yellow cotton hem. You should have never followed Betty under the fence. It was her idea to sneak in here. Well, maybe not exactly her idea, but she didn't try to talk you out of it. Oh. You should have never followed Betty under the fence. You should have led the way. You bet you wouldn't have torn your dress if you were in front. But here you are. The state fair. I loved state fairs as a kid. You wonder if it's worth the quarter you didn't have for the admission ticket you didn't buy. Crowds still mill about this warm Tuesday afternoon. Technically, you ought to be in school, but Miss Breed loves class is dull, and this little adventure furthers your education, don't it? The livestock exhibitions. Oh, I thought it would just give another thing. That's the thing about Twine games. I never know if I should click it because it'll give me more information, or if I shouldn't click it because then it would take me to a new page. It's always a struggle with me. Animals are the whole point of the fair, I suppose. Well, them and the crops. You and Mama have been scraping by ever since you sold the last hog for slaughter around Christmas. You've got a few chickens still, but nothing like the flurry of animals you see in this direction, caged and penned, waiting for their blue ribbons and just rewards. You shrug. Come on, let's go to the Midway. I grew up in a town that knew lots of people who had show animals. You and Betty head towards the Midway. The fair seems more crowded than even a few minutes ago. You lead Betty past a couples, arm in arm, families trailing their small children behind like little gooselings, and snappy-dressed young men sporting double-breasted, high-lapel suits, their heads covered in fedoras and Homburgs. Look at that, Betty nods towards the building up ahead. They can dress up in jazz suits all they want, but you know they're just farmers wearing fancy clothes. It's a white clapboard building, one of the few permanent structures on the fairground. A big white banner waves between two doors on the front of the building, one door marked entrance and the other exit. In black bold letters, the banner reads, "Fitter families for future firesides." Oh, the word comes out of Betty's mouth like a hiccup. My dad won to enter that contest. Fitter families, you ask? You're not sure whether to make a joke about the name or admit that you've never heard of such a contest. Fitter families, I've never heard of that. Betty looks at you like you're crazy. Are you kidding? It was in the paper. Your whole family goes in and gets tested, and they take your family tree and see how far back certain traits are, like musical ability or good looks. You think for a moment. I'm left-handed, and so is my mama. Betty looks doubtful. I wouldn't brag about that. That's like she searched for the right word, a flaw. I don't think you get a medal for that. She points to a display underneath the banner. You look more closely at the display. I think this one's very curious. I do want to play more of this. I think the ending was super enticing, and now we're back at a fair, and what could go wrong there, but there's testing. It's definitely in the mad scientist category of Netflix, and that's where I belong. Next. We're playing Ephemeral DEMO. That which is not made to last, only in the code, only in your memory. In the velvet darkness, a voice is heard while it guides your steps with each explanation. Seeking to extend our existence, we overturn experiences and visions in places like this in the hopes that it reaches others, and thus we could avoid losing a part of our memory during what remains of this. One part, because during the process, our perfectionism side seeks to block and make this an impossible mission. It gets silent a moment, you stop walking. It is heard very close, in a whisper. You don't promise something perfect. I only pray that your journey through these imaginary bridges will be pleasant, and that if you ever return, you will always be well received. You start to march again, practically pushed by a force that surrounds you everywhere, even if we don't recognize you anymore. You run. This voice is heard farther and farther, until something looms from your shoulders, but the voice speaks in front of you. But you will write? I have no idea what's being said here. You know who you are. If that is the case, take this shortcut. As you go, your eyes get used to the gloom. Little by little, what was once dark and infinite space gives way to an earthy texture and rough contours. You are in a wide cave, in front of a fork of 3 passageways, all similar, but if you focus your attention individually on each one, the lights and shadows that are drawn on their walls are different, indications of what might be expected when you leave this rock shelter. It will be better to inspect one by one if you're still not sure which to take. You focus your attention on the fork to the left. The fork on the front is blocked by rocks that fell from the ceiling. The fork on the right is blocked by a column of stalactites fallen by some tremor. Focus so much on the possible ways out made you hardly notice the rock slate on the side. Instructions of some kind of engraved on it. Let's read it. The instructions on the rock slate are carefully engraved, even in such low light they are readable. You read them in order. For those who incarnate and reincarnate at this time, the body offered to you loads with valuable experiences for your journey. Use them in your favor. Oh, so we're being reincarnated. The world you will go to is inhabited by all kinds of beings. Do not be afraid to approach them. Not all are good, but neither bad. With some you need to be patient and wait for the occasion to approach. There are hidden secrets in sight. Others will not be disclosed until meeting certain requirements. Keep moving forward. Not all roads will allow you to go back. If you realize something lost, look for the sky's needle tower. It is nearest to the desirable end if that is what you want to achieve here. This is not necessary to reach a desirable end. If you only want to visit us for pleasure, we will not stop you. If you decide to leave this journey, you have to know that you will lose any progress you've made. Each incarnation is unique. Your memory is important in such case because the one in your body cannot retain anything. Nothing here is eternal. We are images and sensors that repeat without case. Our memory is ephemeral. There's nothing here is eternal, only you have the power to make so. Give us value and meaning, or forget entirely. Finish reading, go back to forks. I have to go left. You approach a passage threshold. You can feel a soft, cool breeze from here. The soil is sandy and clayey with some grains that reflect light as if they were glitter. The sound of running water is louder and even produces a certain peace, like a song. Yeah, let's take that pass. Ooh, it's pretty. You walk through the passage, the promised world opens before you, or as the voice said, apart. What would they have meant? It actually means something more personal and profound. Unfortunately, it will remain personal until further notice. I've always wanted to participate in one of these jams, but I still have a lot to learn about game development, especially what is strongly related to having a firm and constant discipline and plan of action. Skills that even in drawing, my main creative ability, I must train and integrate into my method always. Sorry to cut your dive like this, gamer, but I'd rather do it well than find myself giving a product half-cooked and even more enslaved in doing it to the point of hating it. Hope you understand me. And that, if it leaves me room and energy in the future, I'll be here again with this project, with luck and new experiences to shape the way I really wish to show the world. This is quite wordy and it sounds very good. Next, we're playing a game of Wits and Pistols. I like the music. You taste the sea salt and feel sand in your teeth as you roll over and stare up at the vast blue sky. Somehow you survive the storm. The wave hit at just the right time, just as Longford, the scurrilous dog, led a mob into the captain's cabin. Biggs, the first mate, tried to defend the captain while you stood behind him, hoping nobody saw your leg shaking. Longford cut Briggs down in his tracks, slashing open his chest. He was about to do the same to you too, if not for the storm outside. With dark clouds looming over the sea, rain pelting the hull of the ship, and the lightning flash on the horizon, a giant wave curled over you and came down like the hand of God. After an unearthly crash, there was only darkness, and now this bright blue sky above you. You must have washed up on an island, your body just another piece of ocean tide wreck. Since your legs still work, it might be worth exploring the area and trying to figure out a way to survive. Let's look at the coconut tree. It feels good to escape the heat of the sun by standing beneath the cool shade of the coconut tree. There are some coconuts up high in the tree, if only you had a tool that help you climb the tree. That's the wreckage. You look down at the wreckage and think of Briggs and Captain. They didn't make it. When the mutinous men assembled on the deck, you knew that it would be trouble. Briggs immediately knew what to do, springing to action and grabbing his sword, but you froze. If it wasn't for the wave that took the ship, everyone would have seen your cowardice. Besides, sea-scared, busted up planks of wood, you see a chest and a hook. Let's investigate the chest. There is a chest here that washed up on shore from the wrecked ship. Something useful is probably inside, but it's locked. You might be able to break it open with a blunt object. Let's grab the hook. One of your former shipmates must have lost his hook in the storm. You have to hand it to him for that. This might be useful to get a good grip on something. Alright. Back to the shore. Coconut tree. Use hook to climb tree. Use the hook you found to scale the narrow coconut tree. At the top, you can see farther across the island. You can see a set of footsteps leading from the beach to the jungle. You wonder who else might have survived. Was it the captain? One of the mutineers? Surrounding you is a cornucopia of green coconuts ready for the picking. Let's grab a coconut. You will surely be starving soon. The coconut could provide some sustenance. It's so hard, though. You wonder how you'll ever be able to split it open. And in any case, you should probably just find out whose footprints led into the jungle. I guess we go to the jungle next. There's a large knife. Oh. As you walk nearest to the edge of the jungle, you notice a set of footprints leading into the tropical forest, overgrown with vines and thorn shrubbery. You wonder who might have made the footprints, friend or foe. You approach the jungle to enter it, but it's far too thick. Your best bet is to find a large knife, or something able to cut the bramble. How'd that other person get in? Anyway, I think this is pretty interesting. I love the music. It sounds so nice. The story doesn't really match. This whole shipwreck thing didn't match the music at first, but I understand it now. Next. We're playing Barrel, a story about love, loss, and botany. You're in an old abandoned greenhouse. There's a few wilted leaves on the floor, but no living plants except for a dandelion in a small flower pot on a desk in the middle of the space. There's a freshly broken glass near the door and a suspicious-looking sticky substance on the floor. You step forward and hear a squeak under your right foot. You look. It's a dog toy shaped like a hamster. Examine the desk. Being naturally curious, you open the desk drawer. There's a bottle of water in there. You pick up the bottle. Water the dandelion. You give the water to the dandelion. Nothing happens. Let's touch glass. Ouch, that hurt. Do not do that again. Oh, okay. Pick up dog toy. You notice the dog toy is covered in pale green slime. You drop it in disgust and wipe your hands on your pants. Examine flower pot. You look at the dandelion. It looks freshly planted. You think to yourself, that's odd. Why would someone plant a dandelion? Sniff the dandelion. It smells like a dandelion. Pull the dandelion. You pull the dandelion, but it comes out easily with an unsatisfying whip. Curious and unsatisfied, you look in the pot. You dig into the dirt to find a large seed. You hold the seed in your hand. Something about this seed, the slight vibration, the snug way it fits into your palm, the odd sensation of familiarity about it, makes you want to rush home and plant it. You exit the greenhouse, unsure of why you entered it in the first place, but you don't have time to worry about that now. The garden store will be closing soon. You arrive at the garden store 2 minutes before closing. A bell rings as you open the door. You rush past an array of plants and plants and plant accessories to find the pot aisle. There are no large pots. All the pots are either smallish, mediumish, or medium-smallish, or smallish-medium. You look for someone who works here. You wander around the store until finally you decide to just stand at the checkout counter. On the counter is a little bell marked ring for service. Next to the bell is a little blue parrot on a perch. It looks at you bemused, or possibly amused. You're no animal expert. You look around, but you don't see anyone. No customers or employees. Talk to the bird. You feel a little silly talking to a bird, but apparently you're in a silly mood, so you ask it for help. The bird looks at you and dances on its perch back and forth, until you throw your hands up in frustration. The bird squawks and says this is not a pet store, although technically true, it's a strange thing for a bird to say. You look around to see if anyone witnessed the argument you just had with the bird when you notice an unmarked door behind the counter next to the large flower pot, possibly a night-blooming jasmine, but you're not a botanist. Open up the door. I think the pacing in this is quite odd. I like the random weirdness that is happening. It's quite intriguing. Next. We're playing Pepper and Smoke. Perhaps all fields are battlefields, those we remember and those that are forgotten. I'm not gonna butcher their name. An interactive, mostly true story. Content warning. Let's do the content warning. Vomiting, police violence, mental health problems, suicidal ideation, sexual misconduct / assault. Alright, let's start. I've already clicked this. It's raining. This place is prone to rain during the season. Raindrops pound against the windows erratically, loud enough to drown out whatever show you've put on for background noise while you study. You sigh and abandon your books. You should probably go eat soon. This is a small apartment for this town, but you don't mind. It suits you fine. You've grown up in apartments anyhow. It means you can afford it, at least. You've grown up in apartments anyhow. The kitchen is an open plan one, opening out directly into the living room with counters and bar stools instead of a dining table. A glance in the fridge reveals that you've been putting off grocery shopping for too long. Improvise some fried rice. You're never the best chef, but this was something you've managed to learn over the years. Leftover rice, eggs, soy sauce, garlic, green onions, the last of a bag of frozen vegetables, a few hot dogs. The end result is pretty good. Only a little bit burnt. Time to eat. Cooking at home is a lot healthier, cheaper than eating out. You place your used dishes in the sink, washing them clean and putting them into the dry rack. Outside, the rain seems to be slowing down to a trickle. You should get back to studying. Your major is admittedly not something you're very passionate about, but it's something that will get you a job, which is the end goal. It sometimes made you a little jealous when other people offhandedly mention taking classes just for fun, a luxury you can't afford. But it doesn't matter. At least you don't hate what you're studying, and you work hard enough to get good grades. Time flies. Off to bed. Your bedroom is sparsely decorated, as empty as the rest of the apartment. If anything, it's easier to keep clean this way. Looks like you didn't make the bed this morning, and that's okay. You tend to forget these days. I never make my bed. Get ready for bed. You're still in the habit of showering at night instead of in the morning. It confuses your roommates. You have 2 roommates, Riley and Sata, you remember, in the first year, sharing a 3-person dorm. The dorm was large by the standards in this country, but being in a living space with so many people you didn't know made you uncomfortable. They were nice people, not too troubling to live with. You could get along with them the best you could, which is admittedly not that well. You're still in contact with them, though. You're acquaintances at best now. Back when you had them, but you still lived alone, it doesn't matter. But now that you live alone, it doesn't matter. Putting on your pajamas, you glimpse at yourself in the slightly fogged-up mirror. You stare at yourself in the mirror. On the small side, but not short enough for people to comment on it. Scraggly dark hair that needs to be cut. Eyes always looking a little out of focus, though it's probably because you're not wearing your glasses at the moment. To put it simply, you're pretty average looking. You're not too much to look at. That got really negative. Back to the bedroom. It's raining in earnest again, with a flash of thunder or two on the occasion. Not ordinary conduct towards sleeping, but you're tired enough to ignore it. The bed is cold enough to make you shiver inadvertently. Why does it get cold so early here? You pull sheets up to your chin and close your eyes and drift off. Oh, so this is like dreams. You're walking down a street. For this time in the evening, it's pretty crowded, though today's a regular day. There's a strange taste of burnt matches in your mouth and something stringing in your nose. You can't seem to keep your eyes open. This feeling is all too familiar. Get your respirator on. It sits a bit awkwardly against your face, but it's protection. The sirens are louder now. You can't quite see beyond the crowd, but someone is shouting into a loudspeaker, and the black banner is being held up. There's a series of pops. Want another round. Screaming, the crowd scatters off in all directions. The only directions that exist in this narrow street corner. The respirator is tight against your face, and your goggles are protecting your eyes. The others aren't so lucky. Someone's choking behind you. As a kid, oblivious even with the helmet and the bandana, you've got saline in your bag, haven't you? The kid is spread on the ground. You look at their face. A mixture of tear and mucus covers it. They're gasping even in the air around you thickens with white smoke. Wow, this took a turn. Maybe this isn't a dream. I'm not quite sure. It's definitely interesting to go back and forth because her life is quite mundane, I guess, and then this is a bit intense. Next.